Welcome to this special month of spooky Fargonauts. I'm here with my Broichi boys, my Broichi boys.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Hell yeah.
We're gonna try to do some spooky stuff this month because it is October,
Yep.
and we're just getting done with our Twin Peaks watch, which happened around this time
Spooky season
year.
last year.
Yeah.
For now, we're done with it. We're done with Twin Peaks for now.
Yes. We just got through the main series of television episodes, so we got through The Return, and yeah, that was a really fun deep dive into the meaning behind, or the takeaways, I guess, from that show. And yeah, we're gonna just kind of go completely different now, and we're gonna dive into somebody else that has had a notorious history with spookiness and eeriness and strange occurrences and things like that. The artist Junji Ito just recently came out with a Adult Swim / HBO Max show.
Legit been in the works for like 5 or 6 years.
Exactly, yeah.
They were working on it pre-Pando, and then the Pando threw it off.
I remember when the first like trailer dropped so many years ago.
And they said right away to like, hey, we're doing this, but it's going to take a long time. We're trying to do this as like loyal to the art as possible. Which is good, because if you've seen some of the other like anime adaptations of Junji Ito stuff, it just doesn't quite feel the same, because a lot of anime it's kind of uses a lot of shortcuts. It's not going to get all that detail, right?
Yeah. And maybe, Bracho, you'd be good to just briefly go over what makes Junji Ito's style or his art unique. I could talk a little bit about it, but I just know that whenever I read some of his stuff, there's always like a slow build up, and then there you get to a really poignant part of the story, and you open up the next page, and it's just like this most graphic, intense, detailed, creepy thing.
Two things he does like better than anyone is drawing beautiful looking people and just the grossest shit you've ever seen. And like he balances the two and uses them tonally in ways that make you feel, put off. And like he's also like manga artists in general, but for like what's very important for like horror stuff in anything, I say, but especially like if you're doing that genre in a comics format or similar, like manga, black ink is very important in your spotting of blacks and shadows and your usage of light. And he is maniacal with the ink. That man can go from just like the cleanest looking panel to just like the scratchiest, most like aggressive, scary looking shit. So I really think it's his ability to balance tone and use his graphic ability to sell you on how you're supposed to feel while looking at it. You can draw like a scary monster looking thing, right? But it's not going to be effective if you don't, have something special to it, right? That makes it feel, whether it be the story building to the reveal or just a very specific way of the detail and the light plays off the thing or what. And he's just stupid good at it. It's why he's like next to someone like Akira Toriyama or like Katsuhiro Otomo or like well, less so him now, but and like maybe like Ichiro Oda, who's the One Piece guy. Like he's like one of the closer things to a household name. You know what I mean? For manga in the US.
Sure.
Like people who are only moderately into the stuff or have just been online for a while know who Junji Ito is. I would say he's probably like the most outside of like in the US, outside of something like, you know, your big shonen manga, he's got to be like the highest selling dude. Like outside of, like I said, outside of people like Oda and like Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia, shit like that. He's got to be like up there, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good take. I do want to get into this episode. Have any of you guys seen this show?
I haven't watched. I was going to watch it last night, but I fell asleep.
Okay.
Before I could.
Wilson, did you know that this show was coming out at all?
Yeah, I've been familiar with Junji Ito's works for like a while, and when was the original Uzumaki released?
Uzumaki originally? Ooh,
like
good
the
question.
Manga, probably.
The manga was probably, I'm gonna say, 90s.
Yeah. So I've heard the name. I've never read it. I'm not familiar with this specific story, but I've known that this was in the works and ready to like receive it whenever it did come out. I have not watched any trailers. I've not tried to look into it too much because his stuff is best, digested just completely fresh, in my opinion. So
let's jump into this, and then we'll discuss what we think after we watch it.
Yes.
Let's hope it's spooky.
It do be. This sub or dub, dude.
Well, there we have it. The first episode of Uzumaki by Junji Ito and the people over at Adult Swim, William Street.
It's pretty chill, right?
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
what do you guys think?
Yeah, kind of. Like it's got a chill vibe.
Dude, I was constantly felt like if I had like I could have been like, I could see someone having like a panic attack throughout this whole fucking episode because of just how like constant the like is, you know what I mean?
She does not make it easy.
Love it. There's no chill in this.
That's one thing that I kind of like
so bizarre
noticed about the stuff that I'm familiar with about Junji Ito is that like what is the name? It is Gil.
Yep.
The one about the fish with the robotic legs.
Yep.
And the Enigma of Amigara Fault are the two stories that I read first of his.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those and this, all three, speak to the idea that he's like, he's really good at using horror that is super overt. Like the audience watching it, reading it is like, oh shit, I'm like you can't ignore what's going on.
Yeah.
But he's very good at keeping it a mystery. There's there's
a lot of
explanation of like why it's happening.
It's very like Lovecraftian in that way. You know what I mean? Like it's the unknown. It's like you don't know why something's happening, but it's happening.
Yeah, like you're confronted with it constantly, but you're always questioning, why, when, just all these things.
How'd you guys like the adaptation?
I enjoyed it.
Hard to say, not being familiar with the source material like specifically, but I thought like as a thing on its own, it's extremely good. Like if you want to recommend an animated horror thing to somebody, this is up there in like the top 10 at least.
It's there's many like I recognize that from the book. There's many things I recognize as panels. You know what I mean?
And I think they nailed some of these. Like I was like, I'll get into what I think how they.
It is very meticulously
it's
meticulously like replicated based off of his stuff. Like it's very meticulous.
I'm guessing what they did was they looked at these, big panels, or like these oneers, these one page things, when like this was a oneer. So what they did was like look at all the oneers that are in the Uzumaki, and they're like, we need to recreate this to its most hyper detailed version for video.
Right. And you can tell when there's like, when one's like this is very, you can tell like this is very specifically a panel in the book. Like you can tell that. Yeah. And the ones that you can tell are like something right out of it are like obviously, for very obvious reasons, are the most Junji looking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But so it's really, and I really like how they work in these backgrounds too that you see in that there, which are just like little things used for emphasis in like manga and stuff. Just that where it was like all that scratchy blacked out, and then like the whole white hole in the middle, like that's all. That they don't have to use that because it's obviously just a obscure or like a abstract way of just denoting some sort of background, but they bring it in a really cool way. I like that.
What I'm guessing, and you guys might have other ideas, but for stuff like this, where like this face is very three-dimensional, it seems, with the shading and when it's actually playing, it reminds me of that thing that Wilson shared of that anime Alien, where they actually used 3D models and then frame by frame drew over the 3D model,
right?
In like rotoscope / a hybrid of a few different things. But it's easy to do that, I would say, in like a black and white. It's like way more easy to kind of replicate that three-dimensional vibe and get those subtle movements from the face down.
Right.
Like this traditional, right? That face looks traditional, drawn and animated, but the other one that was so like moving with shadows, and maybe it's a filter or something, but it looks so unique. And there's a few times where I thought that there's an image of Shoichi getting off the train, and it was similar to the animation style where there it's that same kind of motion where it could have been rotoscoped or 3D modeled and then drawn over. But it's interesting, these blending of different styles to kind of convey this unique story.
Right.
Well,
I'm excited for more.
I think you need these blending of different genres or different types of animation to kind of sell this. Because they even did that in this scene with the spiral in the clouds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They look up and like you can see these. It's almost like a charcoal. It's not pen. It does not look like pen. It's very like artifacts.
Or like calligraphy.
Yeah.
It's probably ink.
But it's like a simulated,
like an ink wash.
It's either a simulated ink or like a hybrid of a bunch of different techniques. But yeah, it was very interesting. Wilson, what's your take from the story so far? Like, it's Uzumaki, so
yeah,
we were talking about the game we played about the lighthouse in this little small town and all the weird occurrences.
Yeah, World of Horror,
and it was almost like an anthology. It had like different stories within that, and that is what I think this is going to be. So not every episode's going to be about the spiral or things like that, but it's just.
But they haven't finished the story from what I'm aware of. Like I haven't read this, but I know it's
a chunky book, dude.
I feel like I'm familiar with this story continuing somehow. So yeah, maybe like later down the line, because who knows how many episodes there will be, but like this is 1, and then like 4 they revisit this story, but in between there they go to other ones. And
the book itself is like almost 3 inches thick, 2 to 3 inches thick.
I can see that being the case, because even that story that I mentioned, inches,
maybe
Gyo had like short stories at the end of it. So
yeah,
this being an anthology thing would only serve it better.
Yeah, and Angara Fault at the back of it.
Oh, gosh, I mean, the thing about this story is that one thing that I noticed right away is like, okay, if it's about spirals, we as the audience are seeing that constantly. So it kind of emulates that like mania that we see the characters going through of like.
Yep, it instills that in you too. The unease of like there's spirals everywhere. Like, yeah, it's good for a tone setter.
Yeah. Like this shot very much right here was like 100% out of world. It's like flip it 180 horizontally, and then it's like straight out of a screenshot from World of Horror.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they just aped a bunch of panels from things.
Well, yeah, like one of the characters, Azami, reminded me of her.
Yeah,
and I can like, I mean, not any surprise really.
Right. Oddly enough, this is like almost perfect to follow Twin Peaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a small town. It's a weird
small town, season. Weird shit happening. You know, unexplained. You don't know what's happening, why it's happening. Involves teenagers.
Wow. Good good shot right there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one that's been on. Yeah, you see, like every goth kid in the 2000s had this on or emo kid or goth kid had this on a T-shirt in like the early 2000s. Hot Topic has been selling this shirt for 20 years. I guarantee it.
But it was good to get that little extra unease with this scene too.
Oh yeah.
Because this would just be the panel. This would just be the page. But then like we see the eyeball just dislocate entirely and just get flushed down her mind.
Go into the spiral. Right. Yeah.
And that was very eerie.
Yeah.
But yeah, a really good image.
He's good at like encapsulating the fucking psychological thing where it's like the call of the void, where you're like standing on the edge of a cliff or like near a cliff, and you're like the tiniest little part of your brain is like, but what if I fell or went off?
Mm-hmm.
And like body horror. There's so many things where it's like these people willingly enter into this situation that gets them like disfigured or kind of like, yeah, it taps into like a very psychological aspect of that like destruction of self, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and it's not like a long-winded allegory for anything either. It's just like here's a weird,
very simply insanity. It can be insanity, right? You're just spiraling in on yourself and turning insane. Yeah. The insanity eats you. I posted a couple panels from the book itself in there. Tyler, you're on one of them right now in the video.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really
I would be
forward to more.
Like, understandably, just watching this and knowing anything about animation, then God, I mean, it's one thing to be animated, and it's another thing to be an animated adaptation of Junji Ito's work, where it is so detailed.
Right.
But man, I would love to see this specific like studio handle other adaptations, not just of Junji Ito, but like Katsuhiro Otomo. Yep. Mm-hmm. The artist for and author of Akira. His work is so fucking detailed. Or Appleseed, or like there's other like obscure ones out there.
Or Masamune Shirow did Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell.
Yep.
Seen that.
There's, man, yeah. Let's introduce these animations that bring a new like style, because I don't know that there has been a high profile horror animation of this type in a while.
Yeah,
maybe the last time was like In the Name of God, or whatever that claymation magnum opus was recently.
Mad God.
Mad God. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, Phil Tippett.
Yep.
It was a blending of genres. It was very much like a fever dream. I know that much.
Yeah.
Seen it twice, and that's more than a lot of people need to see it, but it was just, I really enjoyed, this guy's, where his brain was, and it was just him making this himself. Like, that's commendable, and that deserves to be, seen. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, that can be considered horror. It could be just like a psychological or just a passion project kind of thing. I don't know what he meant for it to be, what genre he meant for it to be. He just was like, I'm just gonna create something. If it's scary, it's scary. But yeah, this is definitely great for October. We're gonna probably continue watching these if we're able to, or discuss them as we go through October.
Yeah.
Let us know what you guys think of Uzumaki by the Adult Swim crew and William Street and Junji Ito in general. If you've seen the other things by Junji Ito, let us know. Maybe we'll check them out at some point. And
get in the comments and discuss what your favorite Junji Ito story is.
Yeah,
if you're familiar, and if not, recommend to others your favorite.
Yeah, I got something I'd like to share with you guys too. So
yeah,
Junji related.
Junjish.
Junjish.
All right, well, stay tuned for more spooky seasons coming up with the Fargonaut boys.
Thank you, everybody. Good boo.
Boy.
Good boo.